you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the Minister. I'd like to shift gear a little bit here. Tourism happens on the same landscape as a lot of other activities in Alberta, obviously. And on public lands, tourism can occur in close proximity to resource extraction practices. In many instances, tourism may not align with resource extraction practices. And I just want to take an opportunity to zoom in on the Crow's Nest Pass a little bit, because it's a great example of this conflict. So the Crow's Nest Pass is a tourism development zone in the Alberta Tourism Strategy, and it is also the site of a proposed coal mine just 7 kilometers north called Grassy Mountain. So I wonder, through the chair to the minister, how much of the Travel Alberta grant is going to the Crow's Nest Pass to develop their tourism development zone? And how is the minister reconciling a coal mine potentially going 7 kilometers north of this tourism development zone, regardless of if the mine has impact to water or wildlife or anything like that? The proposal for the mine talks about a transfer yard at the rail yard in Blairmore, which will inevitably create coal dust blowing over the communities of the pass and the surrounding trails. So is coal a compatible land use with tourism, specifically in the Crow's Nest Pass? And how much of that Travel Alberta money is going to the Crow's Nest Pass to develop their TDZ?
Well, thank you, member, for the question. And I'm happy to let my deputy minister at some point in my answer talk a little bit about the specific amount of money that's going there. He would be the best person to ask that question. But what I can say is, when it comes to compatibility with tourism, our government and the Ministry of Tourism and Sport particularly understands that if we don't do things in isolation. And that's exactly why we did a review of the renewable projects. There was a windmill project that was planned near Hillspring, just outside of my town that I call home, Cardston. And as a result of the new mandate with protecting beautiful viewscapes, that project is no longer going ahead. So what I can say is that we are very cognizant of potential threats and opportunities in the tourism sector, but across the whole spectrum. But I think that the Crow's Nest Pass in particular has a tremendous upside for the province as a place that could be responsibly developed with more tourism attractions. And the money going there is going directly to making sure that we advertise it as such. And I'll allow my deputy minister and CEO of Travel Alberta to talk more about the specific investments in that area.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Those are not easy questions, but we'll see how we can get through them. We have to live in balance. There are different sectors of the Alberta economy that abut each other, and I think we have done a very good job as a province, as opposed to some others, of creating space for that type of diversity. Obviously, our focus is trying to get folks to see the beauty above the ground as opposed to exploiting what's below the ground. But we know that they have to live together in compatibility. The actual investment in the Crow's Nest Pass is a tougher answer, because it's not an easy place to get started. There was the minister and I were down there, I think about a year ago, meeting with council. There are some communities that are just not ready to receive tourism, or not tourism ready. We actually have gone and invested in a master plan for that area. We have given them a series of options. We have invested in a couple of key properties down there. Charmed Resorts is a very good example of a very strong success down there. They know well that the ecology of the area is an important piece of that. We've invested in a couple of Indigenous outfitting operations down there. But it's a bit of while it's a spectacular part of the province, it's a bit of a flywheel trying to get the momentum, to get the community behind that sort of development. And so it doesn't happen overnight. It's a very difficult process.
Thank you. Through the chair to the minister and the deputy minister, I appreciate that it is a difficult situation. And I, too, have spent quite a bit of time down in the Crow's Nest Pass and in the castle. And I think that there are some very specific things that could be done to promote tourism in that space that actually do fall under the government's purview. Although not necessarily in the tourism ministry. So, for example, one of those opportunities is to pave the road from Blairmore to the Castle Provincial Parks, which would more directly connect that community to Alberta's most recent, largest provincial park in southern Alberta. Recognizing that falls under transportation and forestry, I do hope that is something that the minister is championing with his colleagues, because in the reality, tourism can provide longer-term economic and environmental sustainability than a coal mine. And in this particular case, I don't think a coal mine is compatible. Coal dust swirling over mountain bike trails is not how people want to do cardio in the mountains. However, moving on, we're going to run out of time here. There's also the issue of forestry operations outside of Bragg Creek that has also generated significant public concern because of impacts to tourism and recreation potential. So we're faced with these very specific issues, and I think the All Season Resorts Act is going to create more of these situations where we have tourism and recreation directly in conflict with resource extraction in the minds of the local people in the local community. And what I want to know is, what is, through the chair to the minister and the deputy minister, what is the strategy to deal with these conflicts? How do we make the hard choices between tourism and resource extraction when they're both happening in the same place at the same time?
Well, through the chair, thank you to the member for the question. And I guess my short answer, which will then become a long answer, is we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that I made the case earlier on in my remarks that we don't happen in isolation as the Ministry of Tourism and Sport. My colleagues are acutely aware of the demands that we have, but also the demands that will be coming as we expand tourism in places like the Crow's Nest Pass. But if you're looking for a model for success, you don't have to look too much further than our neighbors to the west in British Columbia. It was only 2.5 short decades ago that a place like Whistler was considered a garbage dump. It is now one of the top places to visit in the world. It's on a number of bucket lists for people. But we think that Alberta has a Made in Alberta model for an all-season resorts program, for an all-season resorts division within the department. We have done extensive research, both me as the minister visiting with the government of British Columbia, to talk about some of the things they would have liked to do differently. Have they done it earlier on? We also look at how they've done it properly in the interior, understanding that there are also resource extraction operations in British Columbia. And I think they have just over 18 true four-season resorts in British Columbia, and countless other resorts. So the model for success already exists. We've seen it to the west. We're just building a Made in Alberta option. And I think that that's really important to note, because when we were going through this process, consulting with my colleagues, Minister Schultz and Minister Lowen, in forestry and parks and environment in protected areas, we had a lot of long conversations about how this All-Season Resorts Act and the process is going to respect local cultures, respect the local natural beauty and the resources in the area, without degrading them. And I think it's also important to note that tourism is regenerative. Like, you look at some of the other economic drivers in the province that are extractive. They are great for our province and great for economic development, but tourism is benefiting the area. This idea of don't touch it, that is not conservation, Mr. Chair. And I've even seen videos online of people who are visiting some of the national parks, and they're cramped up in little spaces on trails. I'm thinking that's also not conservation. People are going to continue to come to Alberta. What we're doing is working. Our plan is working. We have to find other places to put visitors who are coming here to experience Alberta. This means the All-Season Resorts Act and doing it responsibly